From NJPBS Studios, this is NJ Spotlight News with Brianna Venozzi.
Good evening and thanks for joining us on this Thursday night. I'm Brianna Venozzi. Tonight, a few stories we'll get into later in the broadcast. As the frigid temperatures keep a tight grip on the state, we take a look at how communities are helping the homeless with more than just a warm place to sleep. Then from rules targeting homelessness to failed election recalls and feuds, what is happening in Toms River? We have the latest. And later, why pressure is mounting for New Jersey's pension system to divest from a controversial tech company. But first, a few of today's top headlines. Governor Mikey Sherrill's acting attorney general is making good on a vow to go after the Trump administration. Jennifer Davenport today joined a coalition of 21 other attorneys general in condemning what they say is coercion by the Justice Department to get sensitive data from Minnesota in exchange for removing federal agents from the state. The group sent a letter to U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi and Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem calling out their demand that the state hand over sensitive data, including voter information, in exchange for the removal of federal agents. That's an accusation the Trump administration denies. Davenport and the other AGs say that likely conflicts with ongoing litigation and court order protections. The letter comes as Governor Sherrill says her administration plans to create a portal so residents can upload cell phone video and report their encounters with ICE, similar to efforts made by protesters in Minnesota. Making the announcement on The Daily Show Wednesday night, Sherrill also said she'll prohibit ICE from staging raids on state property. Also tonight, it turns out the high cost of living here is not a deterrent for people. New census data finds the Garden State is growing faster than almost anywhere else in the country. According to the new census data, New Jersey added nearly 42,000 residents between July 2024 and July 2025, making it the fastest growing state in the Northeast and the 10th fastest nationwide, with more than 9.5 million people who now call the state home. That's a sharp turnaround from the pandemic years when New Jersey ranked among the states losing their population. And the surge is happening as growth across the U.S. slows to its weakest pace since COVID. Nationwide, the population grew by just 0.5% last year, largely because international migration dropped by more than 50%. Census experts say states with strong job markets and access to major metro areas have been better at holding on to residents, even with housing and affordability pressures. Not to mention, of course, density here. They also add that steady growth could hold real weight for New Jersey when it comes to federal funding and, of course, representation. And lots of folks around North Jersey in particular are still struggling to get in and around their towns this week, with frustration building over the snow cleanup or lack of it. In Jersey City, residents have been sounding off online and at Wednesday night's council meeting about side streets that are still buried under icy mounds and pedestrians being forced to climb over snowbanks to reach crosswalks. Schools were closed for 2 days because students and teachers just couldn't get to them. Residents claim entire neighborhoods were left behind in the cleanup. The new mayor, James Solomon, admits the cleanup fell short and is promising a public snow removal report, pointing to gaps in operations and access to salt that left the city with only a fraction of what it ordered before the storm. Similar anger is boiling over in another major city, including Paterson, where residents say local streets are still treacherous days after the storm. That's where 15 inches of snow were dumped. Drivers are reporting getting stuck, and pedestrians say sidewalks are too icy to pass. In Camden, schools have remained closed all week as the district says it's still working with the city to clear ice and snow. And the cleanup doesn't appear to be any easier on the water. Video from the Coast Guard shows ice-breaking operations on the Hudson River thanks to this prolonged cold. Local leaders across the state are asking for patience as crews continue working. And coming up, a look at the state of homelessness across New Jersey and how communities are helping their most vulnerable residents. That's next.
Major funding for NJ Spotlight News is provided in part by NJM Insurance Group, serving the insurance needs of residents and businesses for more than 100 years.
As the frigid temperatures settle in, communities across the state are taking stock of just how many people are struggling to stay housed, conducting their annual count to get an accurate snapshot of the need and how best to respond. In Camden, that effort pairs data with direct help. County leaders and local groups came together this week for a major resource fair aiming to get people both out of the cold and back on their feet. Raven Santana was there.
Riding buses to stay warm. As you can see, I came here to eat. I don't just come here to eat. I come here to network and stay educated.
As New Jersey confronts rising homelessness and economic pressure, unhoused residents like Daniel Waterfield are using resource fairs like this one at Cathedral Kitchen in Camden as critical lifelines, offering food, services, and a path forward for people trying to rebuild. He's not alone. Linda Geis says being here isn't just about a meal, it's about survival and stability, especially amid freezing cold temperatures.
We'd be in trouble. I mean, we could get hurt out there. I mean, really trouble, really bad trouble. It's like, especially just with the weathering and my age, I get sick and everything. So, yeah, it helps. They're like great. It's just a life-saving thing.
At least 15 vendors offered services from housing help and job support to legal aid and mental health resources. Clients received hot breakfast, lunch to go, hygiene kits, winter gear, and something many don't expect, free haircuts.
Haircuts are a small thing that a lot of us take for granted, but it really gives us dignity and makes us feel presentable. We feel fresh and cool after we get a haircut, and that is out of reach for a lot of folks who are in this situation and who are coming to get food here.
The event coincides with NJ Counts, the annual point-in-time homelessness count required by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Last year, volunteers identified nearly 14,000 people experiencing homelessness statewide, an 8% increase from the year before. The resource fair, held 3 times a year at Cathedral Kitchen, added the count this time, allowing clients to complete a short housing survey before accessing meals, services, and support.
Most of these people are regulars. The point-in-time count is really important because it gives us data. It gives us information, which informs policy decisions and resources and funding. The resource fair is a way to attract people here so that they complete the survey so that we get that data from them. Otherwise, it's kind of difficult to incentivize people to take a survey, and it's pretty personal. The questions on that survey ask about your housing situation. Where did you stay last night? How old are you?
And clients I spoke with here say this is not about a short-term fix. This is about feeling seen and heard and finally having the support to plan what comes next.
When I lost my job and I have a car accident and I was on the street, they helped me to get all my documentation that I needed. I'm a veteran, by the way, and lately I've been disabled by the state permanently. So now they're going to help me with the housing. So I see the work that they do and how they help me.
According to Monarch Housing Associates, homelessness has been on the rise in New Jersey over the past 5 years, and they expect to see another increase this year. County leaders say events like these are critical as demand is growing, as unhoused residents face the bitter cold.
We'll have shelter for everybody, and that's what we're trying to do right now because of the cold weather too, is making sure no one's on the street. We have warming centers, we have transitional housing people are in, we're making sure no one's outside. We generally, we have about 600 homeless people or families in our county. We've heard a lot more families actually with the way that the economy is, and some people are right on the edge, right? Like with the way that the job market is right now, they could be right on the edge of losing everything, and that's what we're seeing.
Officials say the goal is ambitious, ending homelessness in Camden County by 2030, reaching what's called functional zero when housing placements outpace homelessness. For NJ Spotlight News, I'm Raven Santana.
Meanwhile, Ocean County is widely recognized as the only county in the state without a permanent year-round homeless shelter. And Toms River specifically has found itself at the center of several high-profile debates lately involving rules targeting the homeless, the future of the John Bon Jovi Soul Kitchen inside the public library, to a failed recall effort against the mayor, exposing deep divisions within that community. Asbury Park Press reporter Jean Mickle has been covering it all, and she joins us now for some more insight. Jean, good to see you. I would say the insight is badly needed. Let's start with that recall effort. What's happening with this level, it seems, of discontent with Mayor Roderick there and what was a failed attempt at overhauling him?
Well, what happened with the recall is they started last summer, and they needed to get over 18,000 signatures, and they did not make it. Now, what's interesting over the last couple days is that Roderick said that he hired a private investigator with his own money to follow the recall people to all their events. And he claims they never got anywhere near the 16,000 signatures they claim that they have. And that came up last night at the meeting, as you probably are aware, where he was basically calling them scam artists and saying they only had a couple thousand signatures. I think at one point he said they had 1,000. So that's where that's at, and it failed. Some of the recall people that are leading the recall have been some of Roderick's greatest critics. And, they came and said, look, more people signed this petition than actually voted for him in the last election. But he disputes that. He said that's not true, and they're scam artists. They're lying about it.
Yeah, I mean, he did not soften his response at all during that town council meeting. He even slammed the council, calling them fake Republicans. He said that this was all an attempt to discredit him, to smear his name, and what he's done for the town. I mean, how's he framing it beyond how I've just described it?
Well, that's basically what he's saying. He's basically saying that the people that were leading the recall are, kind of supporters of the last administration, and that he came in and really shook things up and, eliminated a lot of what he calls patronage positions, and these people are upset about it. That's the way he's framing it. He's framing it also that he maintained a stable municipal tax rate over the last couple of years. Now, in fairness, it was also stable for 3 years before that, before he was mayor. And he's saying, he stopped the downtown development, which was very controversial in the last election. Is probably a big part of the reason he won. So he's saying he has all these achievements, and these people are just a bunch of, basically disgruntled politicos who are upset that he has all these achievements and they're not getting anywhere.
I mean, he also took aim at the press, of course, for the coverage of this. How would you describe, Jean, the moment in Toms River right now, politically, socially? What does it feel like there?
Well, what's really interesting is that, as you know, Dan lost his majority on the council this year. So right off the bat, starting on January 1st, he and the council have really been at loggerheads because he now has 4 votes against him in the council. So it's going to be interesting to see what goes on going forward, because I'm not sure how much work is actually going to get done. The council actually did adopt an ordinance extending the police promotions list by up to a year. He vetoed that. And the council can't override the veto unless they have 5 votes, and they don't have that right now. So right now, it's kind of interesting to, looking forward to see what will happen.
Lots of focus also, Jean, on homelessness in Toms River, in Ocean County in particular. How precarious is the situation for unhoused residents in that part of the state?
It's really bad. And, my colleague Peter Ackerman, photographer, and I have been kind of, following the homeless over the last 2 years, starting with the camp in the woods of Winding River Park in Toms River, which no longer exists. A lot of those people were moved into hotels. Roderick did, come up with some money to help pay for them to stay in hotels. But now that money is expiring. And I don't know if you saw some of my stories about people were afraid they were going to get evicted on January 5th. Luckily, that money has now been, the county has come up with some money, and they're now going to be able to stay through the end of February in these hotels. But it's a big problem. I mean, I think it's a big problem, throughout the state. But as you said, Ocean County doesn't have a shelter, where people can go and actually stay for a longer period of time and maybe get some assistance with, some of their, mental issues, or if they have substance abuse issues, or sometimes it's as simple as people have been living in the woods for a while. They don't even have an ID. So they really need help to get that so they can qualify for social service. stuff. So that's what's going on there. And I think because Ocean County does not have a shelter, it's made even worse.
Related, the Bon Jovi Soul Kitchen, which has operated out of the public library there was lots of community uproar about the kitchen leaving. Obviously, it feeds folks, but it also has become a real meeting place, a real place of safety, as you have reported. What sort of spurred the change there, and why was that such a flashpoint? I mean, I think that among a lot of these stories really showed just the divisions within the community.
Yeah, I think so. And I think what happened was when the Soul Kitchen first, arrived in February last year, there were there were homeless people who would come, at lunchtime to get a hot meal. And, this really angered Roderick, who started calling it a soup kitchen. Which it is, and it's a community restaurant. As you know, I mean, people do pay, if they can afford to, they can pay, and they can also pay for someone else's meal. But people that don't have the money can come in and get a nice hot meal, and also then they do a volunteer shift. They bus tables, they clean up after themselves. So it's kind of a big, been a big deal, and Roderick really attacked it. He got into a whole thing with Dorothea Bon Jovi, who's the founder of JBJ Soul Foundation, going back and forth about what the purpose of the restaurant was. Now, the thing is that he doesn't really have control over it because it's actually in a county building. And now they've just extended through April 30th. So I think that was because there was such an outcry from people about closing it down in the middle of this very, very cold weather that we've been having. And as you said, people have been getting, meals there, but they also have been connected to social service agencies. Some people have found housing. Some people have found jobs. So it's become kind of an important hub in downtown Toms River.
As you look ahead to this next year, we know, of course, the mayor is not up for re-election until 2027. But how do you expect some of these controversies to shape what's going to happen in Toms River in the year ahead?
Well, it'll be interesting because there's a lot of fighting going on between the council and the mayor about a number of issues. Not, hiring people for the police department. The police department is down about 20 people from when the mayor first got into office in 2024, and also reopening the Toms River Animal Shelter, which the council wants to do, and the council wants to end the shared services agreement with Ocean County and have the shelter come back under township control. I don't really think that's going to happen because, the mayor would have the ability to block hiring any of the animal control officers, the people that actually ran the shelter. So those things are going to come up. I expect development to be a big issue again. And also, I expect the issue with the homeless to keep going because it's not going away, and it's just so expensive to rent houses, apartments or houses now in Ocean and Monmouth counties that people just really can't afford it. Even if they have a minimum wage job, it's almost impossible to get housing.
Yep,
so
the affordability issue reaches far and wide. Jean, thank you for your great reporting, and thank you for sharing it with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you asking me.
Public pressure is mounting on New Jersey's powerful pension fund managers over their decision to invest public dollars into a controversial tech company. At a state investment council meeting on Wednesday, advocates urged officials to divest $130 million from Palantir Technologies, a data analytics firm with deep ties to ICE and other federal agencies. Opponents argue the investment makes New Jersey complicit in aggressive immigration enforcement action happening all across the U.S. Our budget and finance reporter John Reitmeyer covered the hearing and has the latest as part of our Under the Dome series. John, always happy to have you in. These investment council meetings aren't necessarily known for being fiery. What stood out to you, and was this level of public engagement typical for what we'd see?
Yeah, great to be here with you today, and definitely not the type of meetings where you typically think about people coming in to raise concerns about some of the issues that we're seeing, whether it's playing out in some of our communities or really on the aggressive scale that's happening in Minnesota. I think probably what we're seeing in New Jersey is a lot of people thinking, like, what can I do in my daily life in reaction to this, because it's drawing such a visceral response. You've seen the Cardinal of the Newark Archdiocese of the Catholic Church speak out recently, and so it's really puncturing things, including making its way all the way to a state investment council meeting. That's not to say that there aren't times when people do raise concerns. The state has a roughly $80 billion public worker pension fund That's bigger than the size of the state's annual budget. And 800,000 people in New Jersey rely on it, whether they're current or retired workers, their families, to fund their retirements. And a lot of times it's their only source of income. So there are times where issues, whether it's investments in fossil fuel companies, different things people do make the connection between politics and investing. But it's rare that we get as many people as there were at yesterday's hearing speaking out on one single issue. That's for sure.
And because oftentimes folks say when they feel helpless, they let their dollars do the talking for them, right? And so they really are urging the state to make this move. But as you report, state officials also have a fiduciary duty to those folks with the pension benefits. How do they sort of balance when they're being called out on this ethical level with the duty that they have for those beneficiaries?
Yeah, and that's where it gets really tricky, because for a lot of the people who are state employees, or they also will hire outside fund managers, they do have this duty to maximize returns and minimize risk. That's sort of agnostic to politics, right? That's a financial calculation. And New Jersey has one of the worst funded pension funds in the nation for public workers. There's been efforts in recent years to improve the state funding of the pension plan, but there were years where it was underfunded. So it's not a pension plan that's that can afford to be too picky in terms of losing investments. It's really trying to maximize the investment returns. That said, there are laws on the books in New Jersey that do ban certain types of investments. The state also has an ethics policy, so there are written policies, and then we get into times when an individual investment draws red flags or outcry from the public, and that's the situation we're in today.
And so is this within the laws of the state as far as Palantir and what it represents? And just remind us what it does do.
So it's a firm that does, it's a very successful firm that does a lot of data collection analysis using AI, and it is contracting with the federal government according to publicly available databases, including ICE. And so the issue is, and I don't know the exact date when the state launched this investment, right? This company's been around for a while. This probably predates all of the current events. The cleanest way for policymakers to handle this, if they do decide we don't want to be in the business of being a partner with ICE essentially through our tax dollars or through public worker pension contributions, would be to pass a law to ban investments in certain types of things, which is what was done, if you remember, just a few years ago. Then Governor Phil Murphy worked with lawmakers to ban investments in companies working in Russia and Belarus, and that was in response to the aggression and the war against Ukraine. And so there are other examples where lawmakers have stepped in and said, we do not want to see public pension funds used in this manner. And I think in this case, that would probably be the easiest way, because then you would order the state workers who do the investing to be hands-off, or to, in this case, divest.
Yeah, those foreign conflicts and the fossil fuels, like you mentioned, were the ones that immediately came to mind to me, because I can recall even small protests at the State House about that. Any indication, though, John, that the council will reconsider?
So there was no immediate response to the public comment yesterday, other than the chair of the council that oversees the investments saying, we heard you, we're not going to do anything immediately, but we did hear your point of view and thank you for your advocacy. So we'll see. There have been other calls for divestiture, including fossil fuels, and a lot of times they'll work with the boards on which the pension fund in New Jersey is very influential because of its size. They'll work to enact change through those board positions a lot of times versus full-on divestment. But we'll see what happens with this one for sure, because it's something that's drawing a lot of political attention, and the new governor in New Jersey has been very outspoken, including on ICE issues lately.
I wonder, too, given the proximity of some of these ICE actions that are happening within New Jersey, whether sort of the fact that it's happening in folks' backyards, if that makes this any different, or how it compares to some of the arguments that have been made in the past about divestment.
I think it brings it home because there were stories that were told by those testifying that were personal stories. People in New Jersey, there was a statement read by somebody who had been detained by ICE, statements that were translated from Spanish. So I think what you see is these personal stories, and that does make it a New Jersey issue and maybe moves it up the agenda than sort of the generic we're against fossil fuel companies.
We know these are long, tedious meetings, so we're grateful to you that you always have an eye and an ear on them. You can read John's full story on it on our website, njspotlightnews.org. John, thanks as always.
You're welcome.
Under the Dome is made possible in part by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
That's going to do it for us tonight. I'm Brianna Vannozzi. For our entire team at NJ Spotlight News, thanks for being with us. We'll see you right back here tomorrow.
New Jersey Education Association, making public schools great for every child. And RWJ Barnabas Health. Let's be healthy together.
NJM Insurance Group has been part of New Jersey for over a century. We support our communities through NJM's corporate giving program, supporting arts and culture-related and nonprofit organizations that serve to improve the lives of children, rebuild communities, and help to create a new generation of safe drivers. We're proud to be part of New Jersey. NJM, we've got New Jersey covered.